Alright, basically MMA videos are back. I want to focus more on MMA. You know, there's so much going on right now. And when I say MMA, I'm not saying UFC. I'm saying mixed martial arts. You know, people consider UFC MMA, and that's just one brand. That's all it is. There's so many other brands out there. And before the UFC, there was Pride. You know, it was always back and forth what was better. And, you know, most people consider now the UFC was better because Pride fighters have lost, but like I've said, there's 3 Pride champions. There's 3 guys from Pride that are champions now in the UFC. Rampage, Nog, and Anderson Silva. Okay? So I really don't think that's a valid argument, you know. I think the cage in the ring makes a huge difference. You know, I hated to see the way Shogun went out. You know, he was so hyped up, and I believe that he was the man. I mean, he destroyed Quentin Rampage Jackson. He beat Ricardo Arona. He won the Pride middleweight tournament, you know. He had huge hype going in, and then he loses to Forrest Griffin. You know, who would have thought? But he also looked horrible. He looked like he didn't want to stand at all. He was going for takedowns. He looked like he was actually trying like a Matt Hughes game plan. I'm like, what are you doing, Shogun? You were one of the best strikers in the world. Why are you messing around trying to wrestle? But then later it came out that he had knee injury and all that, but whatever. Anyways, what I want to talk about is Elite XC is now going to be on CBS. And if you don't know what Elite XC is, in my opinion, it's now the second biggest MMA promotion. And what I love about Elite XC is they're affiliated with a lot of other MMA promotions. They're willing to co-promote, and they're going to have this co-promotion with Strikeforce March 29th. Elite XC, Strikeforce presents Frank Shamrock versus Cung. This fight is huge. So many people don't even know about this fight, and I'm like, what do you think? This is one of the best 185 middleweight fights there are, okay? The reason I say that is because Frank Shamrock had so much hype because he beat Tito Ortiz. He was like undefeated, five title defenses, and he beat Tito Ortiz, and he just retired, okay? And what people don't understand is he was like the GSP of the light heavyweight division, okay? And then he just left. I mean, imagine if GSP was as dominant as he is right now and he just left. That's what Frank Shamrock did. And then nobody heard anything about him. And then all of a sudden he popped up. He fought a WEC fight against a nobody at 205. He won that. And then he didn't fight again for like another 2 years. Then he finally fought a Gracie, Cesar Gracie, who trains Nick Diaz and Gilbert Melendez and Jake Shields and Nate Diaz. You know, and I was thinking, all right, finally Frank Shamrock's going to fight somebody legit. You know, but we also knew Cesar Gracie's record, but I thought, you know, he's a Gracie, he might give him some trouble. It was a joke. I mean, Cesar Gracie didn't even belong in there with Frank Shamrock, okay? So then Frank Shamrock goes and he decides he's going to fight Renzo Gracie, and I'm like, okay, now we have a fight, okay? Because Renzo is a veteran, he's been in Pride, he's fought a lot of great fighters. He fought BJ Penn, he's fought Sakuraba, he's fought a lot of great fighters. So I'm like, alright, now we have a fight. And Renzo's beating him, you know, and all of a sudden Frank knees him in the head and gets DQ'd, and I'm like, damn it, what is up? Okay, so what is Frank really about? Then they signed Frank Shamrock, Phil Baroni, and I'm like, man, Frank's gonna get killed. Nothing but hype. He goes in there and completely destroys Phil Baroni. I mean, stand up, the ground, everything, and I'm like, oh my God, Frank Shamrock is back. Okay, and now Cung Le is one of the biggest up-and-comers at 185. So many people have been talking about Cung Le, and I remember when he was in Sancho and doing all that stuff, and he was an awesome fighter, but I'm like, I wonder how I do in MMA. Well, he's gone through Tony Frickleton now, and he beat Sam Morgan. I mean, he's been pretty dominant in MMA, and Frank Shamrock is a huge test. And I believe that on the feet, Cung Le has a huge advantage. I mean, he's got these karate kicks, spinning back kicks. I mean, he has like the taekwondo type style, but it works, which is very rare in MMA. And now they're going to fight, okay? And they used to train together. We know that Cung Le got the better of him in the stand-up, but Frank's stand-up has gotten a lot better. And Frank swears he's going to stand with Cung, and I don't really believe it, okay? I think as soon as Frank feels Kung's power, as soon as he feels a little bit rocked, he's taking this fight immediately to the ground. Or he might just take it immediately to the ground. He's just been playing mind games with Frank anyways. But not just that, okay? My opinion, first off, Frank Shamrock's going to win this fight. He's just got too much experience. He's great with his hands. And I hope that after this fight, we're going to see a rematch with him and Tito Ortiz. But I'll get into that in another video. Anyways, Not just that on this card, okay? You've got Nick Diaz on the card. You've got Jake Shields fighting Drew Fickett. And if you guys don't know who those people are, okay, Jake Shields is one of the best at his weight class. He beat Okami in the tournament at Rumble in the Rock. He won the Rumble in the Rock tournament that had Anderson Silva, Okami, Frank Trigg, Carlos Condit, who is the WEC champion. Okay, he won that. Okay, he beat Carlos Condit and he beat Okami. He beat Dave Monet in that tournament. Okay. He is legit. He's like won 12 straight, okay? And he's fighting Drew Fickett, and Drew Fickett had ups and downs in the UFC, but he had a pretty good showing. He did beat Josh Koscheck, okay? So he is legit, and they're going to fight, and I can't wait, okay? Then you've got Gilbert Melendez. He's fighting a guy that I really don't know nothing about, but unfortunately it's a replacement because he was supposed to fight Josh Thompson, and that would have been an amazing fight, but we didn't get to see that. Joey Villaseñor's fighting a replacement Cyborg. Now, I know about Cyborg. He had a war with Melvin Manhoff. He trains a shoebox. He's an awesome fighter. He has great stand-up. If this fight stays standing, man, there's going to be some fireworks, okay? Then you have Tiki's now officially on the card. You know, there is a lot of great fights on this card. And then the main event is Frank Shamrock Cung Le. And see, that's why I'm telling you people that Elite XC Strikeforce, there's other companies out there besides the UFC that put on great shows. And now Elite XC is affiliated with Cage Rage, or affiliated with Strikeforce, or affiliated with Icon, okay? Phil Baroni and Carlo Host had a great fight. And Carlo Host shocked people by beating Phil Baroni. I wasn't overwhelmingly shocked because Baroni's coming off of a lot of steroid problems and issues. And, you know, he was a warrior, though. I mean, he took a beating and he kept on coming. I mean, I was very impressed by Phil with the heart that he showed. You know, I feel bad for Phil. Every time he comes close to a title, man, he just can't get it together and he can't win. But also, Elite XC has announced their CBS deal. They're going to have Kimbo Slice in the main event, and they're going to have Robbie Lawler in the co-main event facing Scott Smith for the belt. Scott Smith was in the UFC. He's now outside the UFC. Another fight in April, they're supposed to have KJ Noon versus Eve Edwards. I can't wait for that fight. KJ Noon's beat Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is beating Gomi. I mean, a lot of these guys in Elite XC are very credible. I mean, the talent roster is growing and growing, and the UFC is making a lot of fighters unhappy. And, you know, Tito Ortiz, I believe, is definitely done with the UFC. Randy Couture has left. You know, Arlovsky's not a shoo-in to sign. And as more time free agents come and the bigger these companies get, you know, the UFC is going to have a lot on their hands. The problem with the UFC is they still deliver amazing shows, so you don't really see the turmoil that goes backstage. But there is a lot of problems, and their ego is starting to get the best of them. You know, I believe that Dana White is out of control. He's lost his mind in so many areas of the sport, and he forgets what it's all about. You know, but I'm going to talk about Dana White later. I'm going to do that in a whole other video because I can go on a whole video about Dana White. The guy pisses me off, and then I love the guy, and then he pisses me off again, and I love the guy. It's just back and forth, you know. The bottom line is, if you're a fan of the UFC, then there's no reason why you can't watch Strikeforce. There's no reason why you can't watch Elite XC. There's no reason why you can't watch Cage Rage. It's all MMA. It's all the same thing, just different brands. But the worst problem is it's run by pro wrestling. It's brand versus brand versus brand, and it shouldn't be that. MMA should be a sport. Okay, and I feel like Elite XC and Strikeforce and Pro Elite, the whole brand, all those brands are trying to work together as a sport. And against the UFC, they got a shot if they can get some big name fighters. So basically, watch Strikeforce. March 29th, it's going to be an awesome show. I'll review UFCs also because I still love the UFC. I'm going to talk about Ultimate Fight Night. I'm going to talk about the 83 card with George St. Pierre, Matt Serra. You know, me and Bill are going to conquer pro wrestling and we're going to conquer MMA. We're going to talk about it all. Our page is going to be heavily about wrestling and MMA because it's both of our two loves. I hope to even get Bill involved with some MMA stuff because he knows a lot too. And he has a lot of opinions on things. So, take care, guys. We'll see you later.